I'm using Midjourney version 5.2, and I will run through a lot of renders showing droids and robots. And of course, you're gonna think how the heck I will prepare a nice prompt to have this. Well, there are different ways of doing prompts. You can use the natural language, so basically, whatever you have in your mind, you just put them in. You can do constructive prompts. You start with something very basic, only a few words, and you add more details as you think about your prompts. Or you can do a structural prompt. So basically, you cover three things, which are the subject, the background, and the style or the mood, basically how the picture looks like. And that's what usually I'm using. But when you use that, you need to have in mind that certain words have certain weights. So you need to put certain words in front, which are a little bit more representative in the database. So I will not insist on all those three. The main important thing is actually you need to test yourself many times how a prompt looks like. And in these cases, actually, some of those renders which you see here, they were done directly from the prompt. Later, you're gonna see other ones which they were done actually using a doodle. So basically, I made a small sketch, or I made a picture to an odd object, and from there, I will just upscale it and I maintain the prompt, basically adding details to show a robot like this one, like a mecha, or like an insect, like an engine, like a spider, like a crab, or whatever I had in mind. So, all right. So, how you like to do a prompt? So let's take the structural prompt because that is what I will recommend. So, in the structural prompt, you need to define the subject. The subject is what you want to focus on. So, like this image, for instance, this is more like a crab robot or a spider robot. So you'll say, hey, I want to create a spider robot. Now, this is done with Midjourney version 5.2. This one here is done with Midjourney, but the version is Niji 5. And you can see actually the differences are quite obvious. One is a little bit more photographic, realistic, slash artistic. The other one is more like manga. So you can do that variation as well. Uh, for the structural prompt, the first thing is your subject. This image here shows a crab actually. So to me, it was always a droid or a robot. Like this one, for instance, it's a tall robot. So you try to explain that subject first. Um, the second, you many times it's good to have a good environment, but not so busy. Make your environment relatively dull, or in the sense that not so obvious. So in this particular cases, in the images which you see here, I'm focusing more on describing the subject. So here will be like complex robot uh, with four legs and in a dark background, and after that you define the mood or the style, and you're gonna say, hey, like a painting, like impressionist painting, or like watercolor painting, uh, oil painting if you want, that works as well. And when you have the first part, the subject, for the subject you can use different references. So in those robots, I always make a robot look like, and this is like a spider. So you need to define your look like all the time, because those are actually the references which Midjourney is going to put. Here is a crane robot. So basically, it's a robot as a crane, construction crane. But also I define here with front of a tractor trailer. This is more like a mecha. It looks like the mecha is well represented as well. The other thing which you need to do is to change the color for your subject. So you can have different ways to do that. You can just specify the colors. So you can have this particular color, but you can do combination of colors. Like this one is actually red and black. You can use the weights for the colors. Like this one, for instance, it's yellow with velvet, or with pink sometimes. And that is gonna have the impact on how many, actually how much color is shown on the robot. For instance, this is an olive robot, and olive, like the color olive, but also you can use the fruit as an olive as well. The other thing, you can use animals. So this is more like a dog. So I said the robot looked like a dog, like a cat, like a gorilla, and so on. So you have it. Or you can do also references objects like a box. You can say that too. And by default, it's gonna give you a box shape, but with a lot of complex thingy behind. You can use it as a camera. You can use it as a strange objects. I use that. That gives us also a good result. And from let's say overall shape, I prefer to use insects uh, or animals. They kind of give a nice, let's say, sitting stems and so on. Now you can use specified for the legs with wheels. So this is where I use the wheels on some of those renders. Here I flip it between Niji and V2. So if you have a render in V2, you can try it also with Niji, because sometimes it gives you a different result. You can use also references like human robot. You can use that. This is like a gorilla robot, or combination gorilla spider, stuff like that. Uh, and you'll notice the results are quite surprising. This, I believe, was a Scorpion engine room or something like that. Here it's humanoids. Toward some of those, they are construction equipment, like cranes, excavators. You can use that. If you want to have aerodynamic shapes, you can use also jets, like airplanes. They give you nice results. The other thing, in the subject description, you can say to have details. So you can say, hey, I want it with, here is an example with a construction equipment. I want it to have wires and hoses. You can say that, and you can see the results are quite interesting. You should specify that you want to have articulated structures or articulated components, and that's a good example here, because you have a lot of articulations. The other things which you can specify for the subject is the lighting. As you can see here, you can say with lights on or lights off, eyes with lights, stuff like that. You can add it into your prompt. But the point where I'm going is, for those structural prompts, it's very important to give as many details in front, and that is for the subject. The other thing, if you want to use this for 3D, because many times I'm using this as a reference to build something in 3D, you want the background to be white or black, but you want the background to be like almost uniform, like a single color, and that it's it gives you the opportunity to have the object standing out, and you can easily have it as a reference. You see, you have all the whites, you can see the shape, or even with the black, that works as well. And by the way, this is a cricket robot. You can have also two panels in one, so you can say render front and side view. Sometimes works, sometimes doesn't, but at least you can try that, and you can use it. This is a front view robot. This one is more like armored robot or stuff like that, I put it. Again, insectoids, crabs, and so on. This is more like a dog or a cat, pantera, puma, whatever I use at the time. You can change the color for the subjects. I do prefer to have at least two colors. I'm trying to avoid to have a single color. And the combination, as you can see, it gives you different material renders, which is quite interesting as a result. For the subject, you can define also the distance. So if you want to say close out, so if I want something really close to the subject, or I want a full body, that works as well. Most of those are actually full body. And again, if you are intending to use this to do a 3D model, you can use whatever modeling software you prefer. Can be SketchUp, can be Blender, can be Plasticity 3D. There are a lot of softwares over there which can help you out building this, and again, you can use it from the 3D render, but with the side view, front view, or turnaround view, you might get not the same image. You might actually struggle. And usually, one side is okay, but when you want to have the same like this one, I want side view and front view, it's gonna be a mismatch. So you might want to try, but one side always it's a, a little bit okay to start the 3D model, but when you have it in 3D or accelerometry like this, is giving you a little bit better understanding for the volume. So I do prefer the 3D side. Now, if you are using softwares like SketchUp, you can put it in the perspective mode and you do the match photo, and from there you align the two perspective lines on the left, two perspective line on the right, and you'll be able to kind of mimic the 3D model. Now, for those complex shapes which you have here, it's a little bit more complex, but for vehicles, especially for cars, you can, like here, for instance, if you want to build this, you can actually put it relatively okay in the perspective, so building the model from there. Back to the prompt. So after you define the subject as using as many details as you can, you define the background. And in those here, I use a very simplistic background, either a single color, or either like a warehouse or low light, stuff like that. I try to use it to not complicate the overall look for the image. And in the third one will be the mood or the style, and here you can use either as a painting, and you can use oil painting, you can use impressionist painting, or you can use the different type of paints. So on some of those, actually, I used something like acrylic, something like watercolor. I didn't actually have too many watercolors here, but I did have a bunch of gouache and tempera colors, and they give us a relatively nice render. You can use photographic, so this one probably was with the photographic render, high details, hyper realistic render, ultra high definition, UHD, 8K, 16K. Use those words to define a very nice rendering for your subjects, especially when you do robots which have a lot of details, especially those with hoses and uh, articulation. You kind of want a good detail, especially if you want to build this in 3D. The other thing which you can use here as well, specify the lighting with shine objects or dual objects or flat or weathered. So you can have that with you can say with stencils. So they will put different kind of things on numbers. You can say serial numbers as well. They will show you that, which is quite interesting. The other thing which you can use for the overall look, you can use different time of the days. So you can say morning light, well, golden light, afternoon, night, and so on. So that's a good control for the lights. Or you can use the photographic terms. So you can say scenic light, spotlights, and so on. Or you define the object and you say it's an equipment with the lights on, so you can have those kind of lights popping up in your renders. So I hope you like it. Those are a few tricks which you should know if you want to have some good renderings for your